Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuhu. I'm Mustafa Kashif, and today I just want to have a very brief discussion with regards to the events of yesterday. Well, as we all know by now, Queen Elizabeth Regina of England died. The Muslim position is very simple on that, as it is stated in the Holy Quran. Every soul must taste death, and the Queen is no exception. She has been returned to Allah, for it is said, from Allah we came and to Allah we shall return. And she, like every other human being, will face her Maker and she will be judged. She will be judged for that which her hands sent forth, that which was deliberate or intentional, and that which was perhaps not intentional. Today, I was asked by a representative of CBC if I would like to give a quick view for television as to whether or not I liked the Queen, to which I declined. Why? Because it was not important for me to go on national television talking about whether I like the Queen or I don't. I would leave that for those who had a very personal view of the Queen. But I don't have a personal view of the Queen, so therefore it was not my responsibility to say such, whether I like her or I don't. Well, here's what I'm going to talk about, and that's the reason for this video. I want to list a few people, a few men of interest, right? And these men were stationed in a few countries around the world. But this conversation is not limited to just these four men whom I will list by name. This conversation should be expanded. And by expansion, I mean that we should now become more, interested in researching and trying to understand how the British, how the British Empire was expanded and what sustained it. And what sustained the British Empire is the behavior of the emissaries that were sent to many parts of the world so as to control the people and keep them in line with the British policies, which the Queen and the royal family are a part of. Let me cite a few examples here, and I'll call these men by name. One, Lord Louis Mountbatten. Anything to do with Asia is at that time, and I'm talking primarily between the 40s to the 60s especially. Lord Louis Mountbatten. Any person from the Asian continent would know of Lord Louis Mountbatten. Any person who is born either in Zimbabwe, which was Rhodesia before, and or Kenya, the East African country of Kenya, would know of the name Sir Evelyn Baron. Anyone who is of Guyanese descent would know of the name Sir David Rose, and anyone who is of Jamaican descent will know of the name Sir Kenneth William Blackburn. Now, it is important that we know who these men are, and we know what they were about. What these men were about were the securing of the British Empire through and by the countries that they were living in. Sir David Rose was in Guyana at that point, at that time in history. Sir Evelyn Baron, he lived in the 1940s, he lived in Rhodesia. And in the 1960s, he was stationed in Kenya. And of course, we have, what's his name? Sir Kenneth William Blackburn in Jamaica. And then we have, of course, what's his name? Lord Louis Mountbatten in the Asian continent. And I say the Asian continent because he had a hand in many Asian countries, Malaysia, India, Pakistan, etc. He was everywhere. He was all over. He was one of the main guys. So, to corral the people by force when necessary and into a forceful obedience to the British monarch, the British Empire, and the Queen in particular. Now, these guys were never scolded by the British government. They were never scolded by the Queen. Some people are inclined to believe that the Queen and the British government are two separate entities. The way in which I see it, they're not. They're all one in the same, operating from two separate angles, or at least two apparent separate angles. But at the end of the day, they're all part of the same beast. They're all part of the same article. And that was for the securing of the British Empire by any means necessary. Look up those names, and I'll repeat them again. Sir Kenneth William Blackburn. He is with regards to Jamaica. Sir David Rose. He is with regards to Guyana. Sir Evelyn Barron, two countries in Africa, one being Zimbabwe and the other being Kenya. And Lord Louis Mountbatten. And you will find that his hands was all over Asia, the Asian continent. And of course there are more. Why? Because the British Empire was everywhere. And the so-called Commonwealth, which the Queen herself was the head of, right, consisted of over 44 countries. That includes Canada, Australia, New Zealand, countries throughout the Caribbean, and many countries that were under British rule throughout Africa. Just recently, Barbados removed itself from having the Queen being listed as the monarch. And an interesting situation with regards to Jamaica. Jamaica got its independence in 1962, but to this day, Jamaica is still under British rule. Jamaica is still, the Queen was still listed as the head of Jamaica. So what kind of independence are we talking about when the Queen is still the head of that country? But that's another story altogether. I'm not here to discuss all of that. What I'm simply saying is this. Whether the Queen herself was a good or a bad person, that's not important. What's important is this. The policies that enabled you to be a leader or leader de facto for 70 years, if those policies were good, then you go down in history as good. If those policies were not good, then you will go down as not good. And I urge everyone who watched this video and passes it on to do your own research. Do your own research. And again, history is qualified to reward all researchers. Use history and let your history that you have studied and read about help you to qualify what it is that you're dealing with. I cannot say that the Queen was a bad person, and I cannot say, I'm not in a position to say she was a good person, because I don't know the woman personally. I never met her. But what I'm saying, policies that affected me as an individual, policies that affected my people, regardless of where they are throughout the Caribbean or in Africa, if those policies hurt my people and those policies are linked to you, then I have to question those policies as well as you. And the Queen of England, she never scolded those men who carried out murderous policies on behalf of the British government and or on behalf of the royal family. Sir Evelyn Baron in Kenya killed many people. His policies of murder was open. It was an open murderous season in Kenya throughout the 60s, especially with regards to the Mau Mau uprising. And Lord Louis Mountbatten killed many people. This is no secret. He killed many people. And an interesting note, Lord Louis Mountbatten is a family member of the Queen. He is related to her. So, my brothers and sisters, take these few notes into consideration and please do your research. Don't jump on the bandwagon of liking someone, nor jump on the bandwagon of hating someone without knowing what that person stood for. The Queen never scolded any of these people, at least not that I know of, and I don't think it ever happened at all. And if these people carried out murderous policies so as to have us obey or beat us into submission and obedience to the British way of doing things, the British order, which the Queen is a part of, then I would have to humbly say that the Queen was part of our problem. I'm sorry. She was part of our problem and she was not a part of the solution. Thank you very much for listening. And once again, I greet you in the name of peace. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuhu. Thank you.